Greetings and welcome to episode number 2 for our historic mail series. Again, this is episode number 2 of our historic mail series. Let me go ahead and open our envelope. Get ready to get into this one. As we open the letter, make sure I don't cut the contents. And we'll see what we've got in our episode 2 letter here as we prepare to share this on the channel now. All right. Oh my word, this one's definitely a 2-pager for sure. That is page 2. Oh my word, this is a long one. It's page 1, page 2, and page 3. It's a 3-pager. Hopefully I can somewhat follow along with the reading here as we go through this one. Okay? Hopefully I will try. I know it's kind of hard to see the type of paper they put it on here, but you'll have to trust me, it's much better to see it in person. But we will go through this. This is another historic old letter for sure. And this one is, as they say, from the desk of George Washington to James McHenry. And it is a private letter. Dear Sir, Mount Vernon, 3rd day of April, 1797. And it starts off and says, your letter of the 24th ult. Has been duly received, and I thank you for the information given in it. Let me pray you to have the goodness to communicate to me occasionally. Such matters are interesting, and not contrary to the rules of your official duty to disclose. We get so many details in the gazettes and of such different complexions that it is impossible to know what credence to give to any of them. The conduct of the French government is so much beyond calculation, and so unaccountable upon any principle of justice, or even to that sort of policy which is familiar to plain understanding, that I shall not now puzzle my brains in attempting to develop their motives to it. Turn the letter over here. We got home without accident and found the roads drier and better than ever traveled them at the season of the year. The attentions we met with on our journey were very flattering, and to some those minds are differently formed from mine would have been highly relished, but I avoided in every instance where I had any previous knowledge of the intention, and could by earnest entreaties prevail all parade or escorts. Mrs. Washington took a violent cold in Philadelphia, which hangs upon her still, but not as bad as it did. I find myself in the situation nearly of a young beginner, for although I have not houses to build except one which I must erect for the accommodation and security of my military, civil and private papers, which are voluminous and may be interesting, yet I have not one or scarcely anything else but me that does not require considerable repairs. In a word, I am already surrounded by joiners, masons, painters, and such is my anxiety to get out of their hands, that I have scarcely a room to put my friend into, or to set in myself, without the music of hammers, or the odoriferous smell of paint. We get to the last part of the letter here. Now it's kind of hard to see that. I'll see if I can hold it up to the camera a little bit better when we're done here. I will make no apology for putting the enclosed under cover to you. If General Lee should have left Philadelphia, let me request the favor of you to open the letter to him and cause the one under that cover to be delivered to Messrs. Reed and Ford by a person who can inform me with certainty has done so, that I may know to what cause to ascribe, should it happen any delay in their answer. And add, if you please, whether there be any cause to suspect failure of these gentlemen. You will readily perceive that what is said of them and what I write to General Lee is of a private nature, and not to be mentioned unless the reports respecting Reed and Ford are facts of notoriety. Mrs. Washington and Miss Custis are thankful for your kind remembrance of them, and join me in best regards for Mrs. McHenry and yourself, with dear sir, your sincere friend and affectionate General Washington. And then on to the historical part of this letter. Paragraph 1 says, Major James McHenry was a Scottish-Irish immigrant who had trained as a physician prior to joining the American Revolution. When war broke out, he quickly switched to a military role, becoming fast friends with Alexander Hamilton, and served on the staffs of George Washington and Lafayette, and would ultimately serve as the third Secretary of War between 1796 and 1800, touted as being as mighty with a pen as he was with a sword. In 1781, Washington and McHenry began a long correspondence that would continue for years to come. In paragraph 2, Washington is referring to the strained relations between the new French Republic and the U.S. federal government. During the war between France and the rest of Europe in 1792, George Washington had declared American neutrality. However, both France and Britain seized ships of neutral powers, including those of the United States, that had traded with their enemies in 1795. Jay's Treaty, drafted by Alexander Hamilton, was ratified with the intention to avert war and facilitate trade between the United States and Great Britain, angering the French and dividing the American population. In response, the French increased their efforts to interdict trade between the United States and Britain, with tensions reaching a breaking point by Washington's retirement. George Washington had retired just a month earlier after declining to run for a third term of office, turning the presidency over to John Adams. The tradition and precedent of a two-term limit in the presidency of the United States was created by this retirement. So there you have it, episode number 2 for Historic Letters from the desk of George Washington. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as much as I enjoy sharing it with you and reading these letters as the letters are opened in my channel. So thank you very much for just playing a part and being a part of this new series. It's kind of, oh, there we go. If I hold it on an angle, you can almost see, but these letters are definitely hard to read. I can imagine if I had to read them as they were written. But it does show awesome the penmanship of General George Washington, the first president of the United States. So there we have it. Episode number 2 is in the books. So I will put this back in the envelope and we will close the books on episode number 2. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Historic Mail. This is Don Blomdahl, your retired letter carrier.